Hello, it's me, Adam, your favorite first mentor. I am going to do a real quick walkthrough on how to program this Romi robot that we bought. The reason why I'm doing this is because the instructions are online. They're not too hard to follow, but I had never done this before. And I found myself jumping between a lot of different pages trying to understand the steps in the right order. And I kind of wish someone had walked me through it. So now that I have the experience, I'm going to walk you through it. So I'm going to start with the robot built. I'm going to put in the description a link to a walkthrough document. In that walkthrough document, there'll be links to the instructions that I used to understand this. And including will be a link to the instructions on how to assemble this robot with the Raspberry Pi on top. But I'm not going to demonstrate that in this video. I'm just going to go right into the programming steps, starting with formatting this micro SD card. So I'm going to assume that you have a built robot, that you have a micro SD card, that you have some way of connecting your micro SD card to the computer. I'm using this micro SD to standard SD converter package because I have a SD slot in my computer. I have an Ethernet cable. I used it the first time I programmed the robot. I have learned that you don't need to use it, so I'm going to go ahead and try doing it with the wireless instead of using the Ethernet cable. But you might decide to use that. I put instructions on what to do with both in the walkthrough manual. And you're going to need a USB to micro USB connector. So this is the one that's very thin. I think these come with Android phones sometimes, and I think your Romi came with one. If it didn't, I'm sorry, but you probably have a few of these lying around. So, like I said, I have these instructions I made for you. I'm just going to walk through them the same way I made them. Like I said, there's links here. You can click to follow them. There's an assembly guide if you haven't built the robot yet. But the next step really is to go into imaging the Romi. I'm going to follow along on this other screen. So you have your micro SD card, this tiny little thing. It's got 8 gigabytes, or maybe even 16 gigabytes of space on it. I think I bought you the 16 gigabyte ones. So you're probably going to need an adapter of some sort. I have this. If you don't have one, sorry, we're going to have to find you one. But you tend to find these little adapters. Sometimes they come with the micro SD cards, just because the micro SD cards are so small, and I don't know of anybody that really has these off the shelf. If not, sometimes they make USB dongles that you can insert these into. But I have a slot, so I'm going to insert it into the adapter. I'm going to insert it into the slot on my computer. Now I'm going to format this, and this is important because formatting essentially tells the that drive, that memory, how things can get programmed on it. Now I've already done this once, so you can see I have our file here, but I'm going to go ahead and reformat it just to show you what it's like. So you right-click on the drive, you find your drive here in the Explore Navigation pane. It shows up here because it shows up on my computer, but you can right-click on it, select Format with a left click. It'll give you some information about the drive. Your drive should look something like this. It won't show exactly 16 gigabytes if it's 16 gigabytes. There's usually a partition on it that's for some other purpose. So there's your capacity. You want to choose the FAT32. It's probably default. If not, select it. Allocation unit size, I just select default allocation. I leave this quick format on, and if you want to give it a label, you could call your drive something. I don't care, so I'm going to leave it as E, and then I'm just going to go ahead and click Start. And it's going to warn you now. I should have warned you this before. This is going to erase everything that's on your drive. So if you're storing music, photos of loved ones, pictures of your cat, this is going to wipe it all out. So save those somewhere else. Save them somewhere else on your computer if you're going to use this micro SD card. I bought you one, So you shouldn't need to, but just be aware of that. I got nothing on here I care about in particular, so I'm just going to go ahead and press OK. It's going to take a moment, and then it's going to be complete. Now we need to download our image file. And this, gave you a link right here. There's some information about it from the GitHub page. You can click and download it directly right from this link. I'm going to go ahead and look at the page real quick just to give you an idea of what this looks like. This gives you some information about what this is, what it's for, release update notes, features if you're interested in that stuff. I'm not a programmer. I understand about 10% of this, honestly. But it does have the instructions in here too, so that's interesting as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and download the file, and if you're following along with me, make sure it's this file here that ends with romi.zip. Don't use this one; that's for another purpose. You want to use the Romi one. I'm going to go ahead and click, and I'm just going to let this download into my downloads folder because I know where things are when I download them. And this one's going to take a while, so sit tight for a moment. I'm going to let this download while I pause the camera and get a drink of water. Alright, my file's almost done downloading. It's been about a minute and a half. And I got a pretty powerful laptop. It's a gaming laptop, so it might take you even longer. That's not unusual. It's a 1.1 gigabyte file. A lot of it depends on how fast your modem can download, and I don't have that great of an internet service plan. So, but once it's downloaded, you might see it show up here in the bottom. You can just click on it if you do. Otherwise, if you don't, if you use the download folder like I did, you should be able to find it in your navigation pane. There's downloads. There's my file. And now what I want to do is extract it. It's right, it's a zip. It's an archive file. They zip it up. It saves some memory. It used to be super important. It still kind of is because some of these files are large and they go through the computer. So we're going to unzip it and extract it. So right click on the file, select extract all. This gives you an option to select the folder you want it to extract into. I'm going to leave it in the downloads folder because I'm going to delete this when I'm done because it's all going on the SD card, and then I'm putting it in the Romi. So I can see here it's in my users, atoms, downloads, and then it's this file. And extracting it's going to take a little bit of time too because it's a large amount of data. So now that we've extracted the file, I just want to show you here in my downloads folder. This is the destination where I extracted it to. It creates a folder that's a parent folder, and then here's the file that was in it, this image file. Now I incorrectly dragged this and dropped this into this new volume before. That's not what we want to do. We need an image disk image etcher, and I downloaded this Balena one earlier. You can find this one if you go into the document that accompanies this. It is under software, and then it's also at this stage in the document, just as a reminder, hey, you're going to have to use this one. Didn't take me too long to download and install, pretty self-explanatory, but you do need it. And you're going to select Flash from File. It's going to probably pop open that file you just extracted. You're going to select that file, and then it's probably going to automatically detect that you have an SD card in. You can look and change it if you want. It's the only file that I can etch right now, so that's good because it means I'm not going to select my C drive or my D drive, which is where I keep all of my vacation photos. And then I'm just going to hit Flash. It's going to try to protect me. I'm going to allow this to happen, yes. And then we're just going to wait a bit while the flashing occurs. Alright, so the disk imager is just finishing up. And it says its flash is complete. So if we go and we look at... Oh, the file went away. I'm going to assume that it's on this micro SD card, which I'm now going to put into the Romi. There's a micro SD card slot on the Raspberry Pi. I'm just going to gently insert that in. I'm going to make sure that it's in enough. There should be a little tab sticking out. That's just so you can grip it. But it should feel pretty snug in there. And then I'm going to turn my Raspberry Pi on. It's going to beep. It's going to have a red light on the Pi, a blue light on the control board, and we're going to give it 2 to 3 minutes. What we're looking for is a SSID that looks something like the WPILIB Pi to pop up, but it should take 2 to 3 minutes. It won't always take this long, I hear. I think it's just a initial startup. You'll probably see the green light blinking on your Raspberry Pi like mine is. It looks like it's just on right now, but it was blinking a moment ago. So that might be an indication of when it's ready. Alright, welcome back. It didn't take long for me at all, probably about a minute. And then this popped up, WPI Live Pi, and then a bunch of numbers and letters afterwards, and these are unique to your Raspberry Pi, so yours is going to be different. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to connect to it. It's going to ask for a secure ID. I gave you the secure ID inside of your instructions. It is WPILB 2021. So WPILIB 2021 and an exclamation point. I'm going to make it real easy. I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm not sure if it's case sensitive or not. Going back to here, entering in the secure ID passphrase. It's going to take a moment to verify. While that's verifying, I'm going to type in, I'm going to copy and paste right from here this address. That's http://WPILIBPI.local/. And let's see. I would have expected that to work. Give it just a moment. So I'm experiencing a little trouble. I'm not able to connect to this over the Wi-Fi initially. I'm not sure if you'll have the same problem, but if you are, I'm just going to go to the Ethernet cable. This worked for me before, and it's going to work again. So plug the Ethernet cable into your computer and plug it into the Raspberry Pi Ethernet port. Go to that web address I gave you earlier. It should load right up. There we go. So now we're connected to the Raspberry Pi, and this is our configuration of it. We're going to go right to the Romi, and we're going to do two things. We're going to calibrate the inertial measurement unit, which is the IMU, and you're just going to set your Romi down flat and calibrate the, oh, I'm sorry, we got to click writable first. Then we're going to calibrate the gyro and just leave it very still while it does this on a flat surface. Every one of these has a little bit of an offset when they ship. There we go, so ours was off by just a little bit in some directions, no big deal. And then we're going to update the firmware. Oh, and to do that, we've got to connect this USB cable, and it recommends that we do this with power off. So I'm going to turn the power off on the Pi. Just flick the switch off and press the button. And then I'm going to insert one end into my Pi, the other end into this port right on the front of the Romi board. There we go. And then I'm going to turn it back on. And I'm going to give it a minute just to catch up. Alright, now that I've got that cable connected, I'm going to make sure that I select Writable up here at the top. And then I'm going to click on Update Firmware. And it gave me a little beep. I'm going to go down here and check all this stuff. When it's done, you'll see this AVR dude done, thank you message. And that's it. You have updated the firmware on your Romi. Now is a good time to take a break if you want. Otherwise, if you feel like you want to change your Romi's password, you don't have to do this, but you can go under Network Settings. And if you don't want it to have this particular SSID here, you can change it to something unique, and you can give it its own passphrase. I'm going to leave it as is for now for me, because I've got the own Romi that's going to be in my house for a while. But you can name this to anything you want. You can change the passphrase to anything you want. And if you screw up, you can take that micro SD and reflash it and go right back to square one and do this all over again. So after it's all done, I'm always a good idea to click save when you've been fooling around with stuff. And then I'm going to turn this off so I can disconnect the cables. I'm just going to disconnect the USB. Oh, shoot, I didn't turn it off. Sorry, you got to flick the switch to off, and then you got to press the button to turn it off. Disconnect this cable, disconnect the Ethernet cable. And now for downloading this VS Code. Now there's a particular version of VS Code, so don't just go downloading any version. And I gave it to you in these instructions, so you can go right to the instructions. It's under 3.1. I'm just going to click to download this. I'm going to let it go into my downloads folder. And this one's going to take a little bit while because it's 1.6 gigabytes, so I'm just going to put you on pause while we wait. Alright, I've downloaded that file. Go back to my downloads folder. There it is. It's this ISO file. And now I'm going to double click on that to open it up, and double click on the installer. Now to install this, you're going to click Start, and I'm just going to do this download VS Code for single install. There's some language here. What they're trying to say is that because they're essentially modifying a program or installing their own templates for a program, that they can't bundle it together for licensing and legal reasons. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Download VS Code for single install. and it's going to take a little bit of time to do that, so I'll come back after it's done. When it's done downloading, you click next to continue. It gives you a bunch of options already checked as default for other items you'd like to install. I'm just going to leave these. We may need some later, so I'm just going to install for this user, and then I'm going to put you on pause while this installs. Alright, it has finished installing. I'm going to press finish to exit. I'm going to go to my desktop, and I've got a couple of icons in a folder installed here. I'm going to click this one, the 2021 WPI Lib VS Code. And that opens up the Visual Studio Code window. Remember, we downloaded a special version of Visual Studio, so it already has some files in it. And now we're going to create a new project. And to do that, I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and P. It's going to bring up this window here, and I'm going to search for the Create a New Project command. I'm going to start typing it. Here we are. WPI Lib, create a new project. That's what we want. It's going to ask us to select a project type. I'm going to select an example. I'm not going to worry about selecting a language. Maybe I have to. Let's select Java. And then we'll scroll through this and try to find Romi reference. There we go, Romi reference. And then we can fill out the rest of the fields. So this is going to create a folder where it stores this information. I'm going to call mine, my daughter likes turtles, so I'm going to call it RoboTurtle. And I'm just going to leave the project name as RoboTurtle. And team number, I'm just going to leave that as 0001 for now because I'm making this for multiple teams. Shout out to Pink Panthers, Hurricanes, and the Mercy Midnight Storm. And then I'm going to generate the project. Oh, go in, extract, absolute path. Select a new project folder. I'm going to go ahead and put it in my documents. And I'm going to go ahead and create one called Romi. Yeah, let's go ahead and merge the two. It just recognizes I made one from earlier. Sorry, so you do have to create a file path. You can give it a project name, and then you can go ahead and generate the project. And yes, I'd like to open up the project in the current window. So now everything should be ready to go. And there really isn't too much to do. All you have to do is flick the switch to turn on your Romi robot. Connect to the robot through Wi-Fi, means I'm going to have to wait just a moment. I'm going to pause you while I wait for this to pop. Of course, right after I paused you, it popped up. So I'm going to select the WPI lib pi. Doesn't have those funny numbers after it. I wonder why. Oh, I think it's because we updated it when we updated the SSID. It didn't have that in there, so I'm going to connect to it. The password is the same as before because I didn't bother to change it. I'm just going to go ahead and select it. Copy. Don't get the quotation marks. The quotation marks are just simply to separate it from the rest of the text in there. Alright, we're back in recording. So I just went down to, I'm not sure what you caught last, I went down, I connected to the WPI lib pi wireless network. It looks like our build was successful, so now I have to press F5. Don't mind that. So function key F5, it's executing, it's actually connected to the Pi. It's doing a bunch of stuff, and there we go. So this is the robot simulation. Alright, so I just had a little trouble, and I figured out after about 45 minutes that I had low batteries. It was making this strange beep, and sometimes it kind of jittered and jutted. So if you're having that issue, it may be that your batteries are low and you need to replace them all. But now I have fresh batteries and things are working great. So check this out. You're going to test this, and to test it you're going to want to make sure you go up into this right hand corner, set it on the ground, set it on a nice flat level ground, no stairs nearby, not going to run into a puddle of water or something, and select autonomous. And you'll see your robot move forward, turn, come back, and turn around again. Now let's go into teleoperated. And I don't have any controllers hooked up or anything like that. I'm just going to use the keyboard. If you want to see where your keyboard keys are, go up to the DS here, driver station here. Go to keyboard 0 if that's what you've dropped in here. And you can see the different keys that'll work with your robot. For me, it's S, W, R, and E. So W makes it go backwards, S makes it go forwards, R, if I hold it, makes it spin really fast one direction, E slows it down, and if I do E in the other direction, it'll spin in the other direction, and then R will slow it down. And you can see there's different increments here in key rates. So pressing one way will make things happen one way faster, and pressing another way will make it happen another way faster. And you can see here these axis values change, and that corresponds to how much input your robot's getting at any one point in time.